All right, we're heading to football now on the SportsMax Zone and day one of the Unity Cup, the four-team international tournament taking place in West London. That's including Ghana, Nigeria, Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica. Got underway earlier today with the Caribbean teams kicking off the action at the GTEC Community Stadium, home of English Premier League team Brentford. And unlike the last few duels between both teams, this one proved to be quite entertaining. Despite taking a 2-0 lead courtesy of goals from Casey Palmer and debutant Roman Burrell, the Reggae Boys were pinned back by a valiant Soca Warriors effort as goals from Isaiah Leacock and Kevin Molino leveled proceedings. But the drama wouldn't end there as the Reggae Boys snatched a win in the 94th minute.
Powerful penalty. King finds the top corner, and Jamaica surely have won it after all. Richard King from the spot. The Reggae Boys, the Kings of the Caribbean tonight. Although in the midst of all those celebrations,
All right, our football analyst Leger Williams and former Soca Warrior Brent Sancho were keenly watching the action, and they join us now. Brent, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon all. Hope everyone is well.
Yeah, good to have you on. And Liz, of course, you're in studio with us, so easy to tell you hi. Well, Brent, let me start with you, seeing that you're watching from a Soca Warriors perspective, of course, looking at the entire match, but a good comeback from Trinidad and Tobago Soca Warriors, and I'm saying that in comparison to how they started.
Yeah, I think Coach Dwight York would be happy with some of the positives that came out of the game. They were a lot more fluid. The ball retention and possession was bad. But I think where he would be bitterly disappointed and really the crux of the matter for Trinidad and Tobago is the sloppy goals that was given away throughout the game, some sloppy defending. Dwight York has been brought on to the Trinidad program to qualify the team to a World Cup. And certainly with defending like that, it would make it very, very difficult for us to get to the World Cup. And I think despite some of the positives that you mentioned, in the second half, they played a lot better. There was a lot more impetus, and they were a bit more better in the final third. The positives, yes, are there, but I think the sloppy defending is very hard to look past.
Yeah, I take that point about the sloppy defending. A quick comment now, Brent, on the Jamaica Reggae Boys.
I think Steve McLaren would be disappointed. I mean, yes, they've gotten a result, but I think overall the performance was lackluster. They really struggled to possess the ball through the midfield and the different zones and moving the ball up the path. It did look quite dangerous when Cephas had the ball and left hand side, but outside of that, I didn't think it was the type of performance. And particularly, you have to take things into context. The type of players that was out there for Jamaica, I was expecting a more dominant performance by them, but it wasn't that. And I think there are some question marks there for Steve McLaren to answer.
Yeah, so Liz, I think this is where I'll bring you into the discussion, commenting on what Brent just said. You know, the type of players, the quality that were there, and the areas that they would have let the team down, despite walking away with that win.
Yeah, I think for me, they would let the team down based on the fact that they would have conceded 2 goals, especially that first goal that they conceded at less than a minute after going up 2-0, and that really allowed Trinidad back into the game. But I think for the most part, I was actually quite impressed and surprised by the Jamaica performance, particularly in the first half. I think the midfield was pretty fluid, as Brent would have mentioned, but one thing that they did very well, I think all throughout the team, was in terms of how they passed the ball around, it was very vertical, and that's not something that we typically associate with a Steve McLaren team, especially as of late for this Jamaica team. And the team was very vertical on several occasions. You saw them drawing the Trinidad press onto them, and then once the ball got into midfield, there was space for the midfielders to take the ball on the half turn and, you know, really advance up the pitch. And I think in that first half, they did that really well. Once Trinidad got the momentum, it became a little bit more difficult for them to get on the ball, of course. But I think all in all, I think that first half was a big positive from an analytical side of things, in my opinion.
Yeah, can I ask you quickly, Liz, about some of the post-match comments we just heard a few minutes ago from Steve McLaren, things like jet lag, because a few of the players are just coming out of a travel from Jamaica over the weekend, some of them contesting the Jamaica Premier League final on Friday, and also for some of the English-based players that they hadn't been playing for about 3 weeks or so, suggesting that those were two factors that and the fact that they only had 1 day of training, a 1-day training session, impacted how they were able to play.
Well, I mean, again, I think that if Jamaica were to take the positives from this performance and use them going forward, I think we would see a better Reggae Boys team when we see the quote-unquote first 11 going forward. I get the point about being jet lagged, but only Richard King and Shaquan Davis would have been in the starting lineup that would have traveled any significant distance. So I wouldn't really factor that in too much. As I said, I personally, especially in the first half, think that Jamaica showed a lot of positives. I think a lot of the negative connotations around the Jamaica team, if there are any, would be based on the fact that they allowed Trinidad back into the game and they really should have killed it off earlier. So that would be the only negative in my book. But I think all in all, I saw a lot of things on the pitch that Jamaica can take and push forward with and really turn themselves into a better team going forward.
Yeah, Brent, can you comment a little bit on some of the TNT efforts today that would have bothered Coach Dwight Yorke, and conversely, some of the things in the game that he would have been pleased with?
Yeah, I'll start with the latter. I think most people, and I was in and around several persons watching the game, and the first comment that they were quite happy that Trinidad was playing front foot football. We possessed the ball and looked confident on the football. So I think from that perspective, and I must say, Kevin Molino, the captain, was outstanding today. I thought he put in a great performance. However, as I said, when you put things into context, both teams, both Trinidad and Jamaica, are expected to make a run in the World Cup qualifiers to get to the World Cup. So you have to take it from that. And at the end of the day, when you look back at the type of goals, again, I have to lament on that fact, and the sloppiness of ball giveaway. I know Leach talked about Jamaica's performance, and a lot of it was given to them by Trinidad. It was sloppy. And the first goal came from a giveaway in the middle of the park. And those sorts of things, you can't do it at the top level. You will be punished. And at the end of the day, if Trinidad and Tobago is to qualify for a World Cup, they cannot afford to make those sorts of mistakes. And I think that's exactly what Dwight Yorke will be telling his charges when they get into the locker room.
Yeah, on a side issue, Brent, can you say conclusively why Levi Garcia wasn't a part of this setup? Because I know he recovered from an injury. He's fit. He scored for Spartak Moscow in a Russian Premier League match just a couple of days ago. Did he decline an invitation for this match?
I haven't seen anything in the media to suggest that, but we've had our challenges with Levi Garcia and a player for Trinidad and Tobago. He's had his injuries. He's also had his situations where he chose to stay with his club and of course, and solidify that situation. And it's something that I think quite Coach Yorke is probably a bit, concerned about, because at the end of the day, he does give them a completely different dimension, and he is certainly their go-to guy when it comes to, the forward impetus. So there would be concerns. There's nothing in the media here in Trinidad. I haven't heard anything, but it is concerned that he's still not yet played for this Trinidad and Tobago team since his move. The Gold Cup is set up. He's carded to play, and that you can only hope, and the World Cup qualifiers, of course, before that, you can only hope that he does join the team. But, there are some severe question marks that comes over his head and his participation for the national program.
Yeah, and can you talk a little bit more about the benefits that Levi Garcia would offer to Trinidad and Tobago's setup?
Oh, he's certainly a player of a different quality than what we saw today, that drives the defenders, that has a genuine end product. And I would even argue that he's up there in CONCACAF when it comes to that end product that he provides for Trinidad and Tobago. And he is that forward catalyst that is so missing today. There were a couple of occasions where young Dante Gilbert got into 1v1 situations, wasn't able to get past his man. And that's the sort of situations that Levi thrives on. So I think there's no doubt that he missed his capabilities in this match and for the matches that he hasn't played in. And if Trinidad and Tobago is to qualify or is to go far in the tournament, he has to be their main player if that is to happen.
Yeah, and Lish, can you comment quickly on the Reggae Boys' performance today without some of their elite players like Demarai Gray and Leon Bailey, because this isn't a full-strength Jamaica Reggae Boys squad. Can you talk to us briefly about what this team offered today for you and in the context of the kind of depth that the Jamaica team has, because you don't want to rely completely on your elite players?
Yeah, I think the players that would have stepped in showed a lot of signs that they can greatly impact even a squad, even when the star names would come back. I think Sifa showed a lot of signs. Obviously, he probably should have had maybe a couple more assists, maybe a couple goals. He was a bit wasteful in front of goal, but the brightness that he showed in attack, the willingness to take his man on, and just his raw speed. If you've been watching Ronaldo Cephas for quite some time, you know that he is the quickest player I've ever seen live with my two eyes, absolutely rapid. And you saw that when it comes on to winning the second penalty for the winning goal for Jamaica. I think he put his foot forward. Kaim Dixon was very impressive in the first half as well. And most importantly, I think John Russell in midfield, especially what he was able to do on the turn as well. Here we see the Cephas, that's absolutely burning speed, like just to get around the centre-back, get there in front of the keeper as well. But yeah, I think John Russell was very impressive in that first half also, how he was able to turn and move into space. His impact defensively also, with his long legs, he was able to break up a few things. Richard King was very stable, I would say, at the back also. So yeah, I think a few Jamaican players stepped up also. The goal scorer for the second goal, Burrell, making his debut for Jamaica, he was very bright. I loved his runs into the channel, and especially seeing that Jamaica are looking for, I would say, maybe a new starting number 9. Michael Antonio still hasn't fully recovered from his accident. Warner Brown is in there. Shamar Nicholson, we know, is in there. So I still think it's up in the air, and if he were to really throw his name into the hat, he showed some really good signs today.
Yeah.
A quick comment on the speed that you say that Cephas has. Chapo is a track and field man. You suspect that he's about a 10-4 sprinter if he was to run 100? Or he's not that fast?
No.
Not that fast? 10-6 maybe?
No.
Okay, all right.
Football speed is very different, very different.
No, but I understand he ran. Before he took football seriously, he was a sprinter in his early teens.
Okay.
Which is why I said he does have a background of sprinting. But go ahead.
Based on the research I did, even the quickest footballers in the world pale in comparison to the best female women sprinters in the world in terms of their top end speed.
In other words, Mbappe could not beat Shelley and Fraser Price.
No, he couldn't. So just based on your asking if he's a 10-4, 10-6 runner, then I think we can assume at the very least, at the very best actually, he's probably like 10-8, 10-9.
Okay, but I want to ask you though, Lish, about the inclusion of Ravel Marson.
Yeah.
He was a late addition to the squad, making the headlines. He joins the setup today. That's a go. What do you think about his performance?
Yeah, I think he added a lot of quality in the midfield area. I think he came on for Casey Palmer, who was, I would say, the most forward-thinking of the midfield three. He tried to add some tempo, tried, as he usually does, to make those slick passes, whether it be in behind or over the top. I think he did a relatively good job of adding danger, was taking set pieces as well. Do I think that's enough to get into, once again, the first choice Reggae Boys team? I'm not quite sure. But, you know, Ravel Marson's talent is undeniable. It's just whether or not he still has the capability of impacting play at such a grand stage. Because, yes, the Unity Cup is a big opportunity, but is it going to be at the same level of action like we would see in a World Cup qualifier, a Gold Cup, or even the World Cup if Jamaica were to get there? I'm not quite sure. So he still has a lot of work to do, in my estimation, to really, you know, put himself back into Jamaica and Steve McLaren's thoughts.
Yeah, and Brent, Trinidad and Tobago will now focus on a third-place playoff between either Ghana or Nigeria, who are playing in the second match of the Unity Cup on Wednesday. Your thoughts on what that match can tell Coach Dwight York about the work he has to do and exactly where his squad is at?
Yeah, he's going to have to shuffle the pack. I think, obviously, it's a squad mainly made up of locally based players. he would have to obviously focus and being a lot less gifted as they were against the Jamaicans, because I think that game they would be punished even further. I do think that the Jamaicans did let the Trinidad and Tobago off the hook in some of the occasions. So he really has to solidify that. And I think if he could maintain the positive impact from a ball possession point of view, from moving the ball forward, etc., then maybe things could look a little bit better for them. I think really and truly, if they can come out of this trip to England with those positives, now fixing the mistakes that they made in the Jamaica game, going into the World Cup qualifiers against St. Kitts and Costa Rica, understanding that those mistakes have been fixed, I think Dwight would be a very, very happy man. There are some positives, as I said. But again, gentlemen, we are looking at two teams that want to qualify for a World Cup. And that qualification starts in June. Well, continues in June and goes on to September, October. So there's not much room for turnaround time. And both coaches would feel that they have to start putting the final nails and the final polishing on the cast.
Yeah, and we've asked you this before, Brent, but not in recent months. And there's not a lot for you to judge him on. But we are some months now advanced from the last time TNT played, and Dwight is invested in this project. How do you assess the work that he has done so far with this team, and the fact that this is his first major coaching assignment?
No, you've certainly seen the improvement, Lance. You've seen it in the confidence and possessing the ball, in trying to move the ball up the various thirds. And again, I think the overall performance and direction of the football is positive. But again, of course, the defending is something that he would have to work on. But I think generally there is a forward movement, there's a forward trajectory, as I said. So I think he does have time to try to fix things, but it's going to be one of those situations where he really has to hunker down and start honing in some of these situations. I think the good thing, and this is probably similar for McLaren, is that both coaches have a significant amount of time with the players. Most of the players are off season. You have June World Cup qualifiers, both are in the Gold Cup. So that is some time that the coaches will spend with players. So I think once that happens, then hopefully you'd start seeing some of the things that was not there in the game, most present coming out of the Gold Cup. And I think that's the hope for both nations.
Yeah, hoping that we can really see improvements there, Brent. Well, we want to thank you for stopping by on the SportsMax Zone, and we look forward to chatting with you again really soon, Brent.
Have a great one, guys.
Thank you, Brent Sancho there, of course, former Soca Warrior. And Lish, thanks for stopping by in the studio. We'll see you again, like later, huh?
Yeah, always. I'm always here, as I say.
All right, of course. We're up on a break, and we'll be right back. We have so much more on the SportsMax Zone just for you.